questions you hear time and time and time and time and time again is, how do I do a smoky eye? And it's really not as difficult as it may seem. There are steps to it that make the whole process that much easier. And one thing that I've done to make things really easy is I actually created a how to create the smoky eye lookbook. Instead of using a foundation, I'm going to use a tinted moisturizer. Oftentimes when you're doing a paler lip, you kind of want to beige out the mouth a little bit, so you're taking away all of that color that's already in the natural state of the lip. So, you know, a lot of people love a tinted moisturizer, and I think they're great. I'm, you know, a big fan of them. And even in the winter, sometimes they can be great if you want to go slightly, just a little bit warmer with your tinted moisturizer to give yourself a little bit of color when you get into that like sallow winter kind of, I need some color help. Just go with the tinted moisturizer and maybe go a little bit like a shade darker, and it will give your face an incredible glow. While I have the eyelids being a bit moist, I'm going to use a black pencil. This is the Blackest eye smudge. I'm lifting up again so I can get really in at the lash line. And again, like I said, it does not have to be perfect because you're going to use a brush and smudge this all out. I'm going to take the small smudge brush in one hand, a Kleenex in the other. Every time I start blending, as I'm smudging this out and moving this product around, there's a lot of product going on the brush. You got to keep that brush pretty clean so that color stays in place. Then I'm going to use my multi-purpose powder brush with a little bit of the matte loose powder, just dust over the entire lid. And what that does is it sets everything in place. I'm going to actually place a bit of powder underneath Sally's eyes. Literally just leave it sit in there, so as I'm using any of these darker colors and the color falls down, it's going to fall into this powder and it doesn't sit into the skin, and I can just sweep it all away. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Lookbook palette, and I'm going to actually start with eye shade number 3, and I'm going to dust that over the eyelid. Whenever you're doing anything in this smoky eye genre, I would go lightest then to darkest. Then I'm going to put on my next shade. You know, smoky eye doesn't necessarily mean black. It's all about the tonal balance. So you can do it in different shades of blue, different shades of browns, different shades of greens, even grays. You know, it's all about that like kind of light, medium, darker idea. And that's really where that smokiness comes in. It's not from, you know, just one color. So I'm going over and re-intensifying that already drawn line. I'm going to kind of work between eye 1 and 2 to get a little bit of that gradation effect underneath the eye. So I'm going to actually go straight in closest to the lash line and let it be a little bit heavier with the eye number 2, which is the brown. It's almost like a little mini downward stroke on your brush, working back and forth, and then kind of mini downward little strokes. And that little movement of my brush helps to eliminate that solid, strong line. Now, if I want to go in there and right in at that lash line, I'm taking some of the eye number 1, which is a black, and I'm going right in, right next to the lashes on top of the brown. Again, we talked about you layer down your lighter shade, then I'm layering the darker closest to the lash line. So again, that creates that gradation. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit of shimmer just in the inner part of the eye, just to give a little bit of sparkle and lift. Now that we have this eye balanced of where we love it, we're going to take and dust away that excess powder from underneath the eye. And you can see that any of the fallout that might have fallen during that application dusts right away. On that cheek, we're just going to apply a little bit of blush using the angled contoured blush brush. I'm going to jump back up and just finish up the brows. So we're going to brush them up. I'm going to fill in. I'm going to actually take that line. Again, it's just the end of Sally's brows here that are a little bit thin. Using the Haze brow pencil. her brows are a little bit darker, and then just filling in the brows in little mini like strokes. And then a bit of black mascara. When you're doing this strong of an eye, like, best to keep the lips really pale and soft. So I'm gonna use the lip that also comes in my palette. You know, when you do something like this, it's great because it sends the energy right back to the eye. One thing that I thought I would show you is how do you even take this to the next level of darkness and sexiness. There's two different elements that you can do. First being is a false eyelash. And so often I'm asked about, you know, how it's hard to apply false eyelashes, which it can be. And you actually have to kind of test them and put them on a bit and size them on the eye. I'm not going to be cutting them. They're actually like a perfect size for Sally. And another tip and trick about applying lashes is you don't want a lot of glue. It's really important that you get in there so it really sits in right at that lash line, and just hold it in there for a minute. If the lash is a little bit too long, you just have to trim the lash just a little bit to fit along that bed of the lash line. And the last thing that you can do if you really are going for it all is take the Blackest eye pencil and line that inner rim with black and go for all eye clown. Le Smokey eye.